Morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our regular community meeting series for PWA and PWA Studio. And so I hope everybody's doing well during the holiday season. I know it's been a couple weeks. So with that, we've got as usual, an action-packed agenda with a series of roundtable updates, some demos from Marcin, who's going to show us a little bit of Mega Menu. From Andy, who's going to show us some address book improvements on the My account. And then, of course, we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. So with regard to roundtable updates, so from the product side, we are finishing fast and strong on a lot of key updates that you're probably already seeing in the code itself. So my account is near complete, as Andy and the folks here on the team can attest to. And so I know that's a big add, and you can already start to see that not only in the develop branch but also the develop demo. So congratulations again to the team for getting through that. I know that's a lot of work, but it's also really one of the biggest areas that we'll get asked of in terms of feature completion, etc. for Venia. The other parts are with regard to multi-store support. So we just got started on that based on internationalization work. So the team is taking a look at that. So look for some progress there in develop. And then on the horizon is going to be some additional product type support. So Elena and the team are finishing some grooming there. We're getting ready to start some Google Lighthouse optimization work. And so with the V6 improvements, we have a couple key areas both on Venia itself, but also some of the configuration we have on the demos to improve key metrics there. Again, especially with the V6 scores changing so much since V5. So look for more on that one, and we'll get some consultation from our colleagues at Google on that as well. And then that'll pretty much fill us up for the end of the calendar year. Next year continues to be extremely strong. And so I think one of the things we want to talk about that I think we've talked about a bit on the team, and I know with Jordan and Lars, is this idea on kind of what is PWA Studio, what is Venia. We have a tendency to go to these events, have conversations, meet with customers, etc. But as we start to look at next year, the prioritization is going to be super clear. We want to divide things up in terms of a shopper and a developer experience. Time permitting, there would be a beautiful slide. We talk about the difference between the two, but very often when we are out of the field or out of this group, we talk about PWA Studio and Venia kind of interchangeably, but I think it's really important for us to understand the shopper experience and the focus that we'll really start to have coming out of the holidays being on that Venia experience, not only in terms of its core capabilities and what completion looks like, but starting to get into some of the polish and some of the enhancements that I know that Jordan has shared, certainly around filters, functionality, but also flows, interactions, etc. So those are just the types of things we want to enable, but we've got to finish out the core shopping experience or Venia first. And so we wanted to make that distinction between that, and you'll start to see that in the epics between shopping and developer experience. But the reality is, simply put, PWA Studio is not the same as Venia. Venia is really just a derivative of that. And I think the clearer we see that distinction, the better. But we just don't, because we don't have a chance to meet as much in person or probably talk about it enough. I just wanted to share that a little bit from a roundtable perspective so that at least this team is super clear on what those are. They are all related. We are all building towards a future where Venia itself will be the default storefront for Magento, but sometimes it's used almost a little bit too interchangeably with PWA Studio, which is that set of developer tools to build, optimize, and deploy. And so that's been in a really steady state for a very long time, built upon the GraphQL work that continues to hit every single release, and then building out things like Venia, and then we've got a B2B theme, really a B2B reference storefront coming out next year as well. So you'll see more of that into next year, but just want to talk about that as a team, answer any questions with the folks here, and then if not, we'll switch it back to some of the demos here. So with that, any questions or any clarifications we want to talk about with the roundtable updates themselves, or really that distinction between Studio and Venia that I know we get caught up on? All right, crystal clear. All right, well, very good. So let's then we're going to turn it over here to Marcin. So Marcin, I think you've seen a lot of his great work. He's a huge contributor, and he's been doing a lot of great content recently with regard to some tutorials on PWA Studio. But behind the scenes, he is signed up for one of our more interesting pieces of work, which is the Mega Menu, which is that kind of that gateway into the desktop experience. And so I'm anxious to see some of it myself, and I know he's anxious to share kind of the work in progress here to get some feedback. So with that, Marcin, you want to take it away?
Okay, thank you, Eric. So let me share my screen. Sorry, I need to. I have a problem with my MacBook.
It's the Catalina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
No worries. If you want, you may have to restart BlueJeans with the Catalina fix. We've seen this a little bit before. So if you want, we can start off with Andy's update. And if you need to rejoin
Okay,
us,
so
that might be
please
helpful.
go
So,
ahead with Andy. Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
No worries. All right, Andy. Andy, you're up. Show us. Why don't you show us some of the great work that's happening at Address Book while Marcin gets set up here.
All right, sounds good. Can do. Share my screen here. All right, so yeah, I'm going to go over a couple PRs that are up right now that kind of flesh out the address book in the My Account section. So first off, adding and editing new addresses, and then the other one is deleting them. So I have the two PR instances up here. Here's adding and editing. When you first start and you don't have any addresses, the customer doesn't have any addresses, I should note that I have signed in to a customer here. This page is not accessible if you're not signed in. Come in here with no addresses on your customer. There's just this call to action to add one. So this whole button here is clickable, this whole area. You can see we're adding a new address, all of the normal form fields that you would expect in an address. I have something pre-populated here. And there's a checkbox here to make it your default or not. There was some discussion back and forth I should probably highlight. There was a question whether, hey, okay, I'm adding my first address. Should this just be the default? Should we just assume that and auto check this box and, not let the user change it? We didn't decide to go that route. There is, the backend does not enforce that you have to have a default address. So we didn't want to enforce that on the front end. So you can create your first address and it doesn't have to be the default. The current customer isn't authorized. All right, I got to sign in again. Right. Well, that was a nice view of the error message. I probably shouldn't have gone past that so quickly. But here we go. I can create a customer address pretty easily. I can come in here and edit it. All those fields are filled out again. If I add another one, we can kind of differentiate these two things. Frankfurter number 2. And let's say I did want to actually make one of these my default address. So I want to make number 2 my default address. You'll see the default gets this little badge here indicating that it is the default, and it moves to the front of the list. So your default address will always be first, and then the rest of your addresses will follow that. With the add a new address call to action will always be at the end of the list. So that's just some UX to highlight there. I don't think if there's anything else to show with adding or editing. I think that's about it. Now I'm going to switch over. This is using the same. I'm going to switch over to the delete PR, and this is using the same backend, but I do have to refresh just to get those. Well, I have to refresh because I'm not signed in to get these addresses to show up. So these are the same addresses I added on the other one, but just in a different PR instance, I guess. It's looking at the same backend. So notice here first on the delete one, you can't delete the default address. That's a restriction from the backend. So you actually have to go in there and edit it first, mark it as not your default, and then you can delete it. Technical limitation to highlight. But I can delete this other one that's not my default address. There's a nifty little kind of confirmation dialog looking thing here that comes over in place. So I just said, hey, oh, whoops, I didn't actually want to delete that. So nothing happens. But if I do want to delete it, it takes a second, verify on the back end, and then you're back here like you would expect. So I actually did want to show off some code here along with this. That's pretty, I think, straightforward in terms of a demo perspective, but for technical folks on the call, there's another little bit, I think I actually pulled it up over here, of fun, and that is the informed form when you pass initial values to it, y'all are familiar with the informed dependency that we have in PWA Studio and Venia for handling all our forms. You can pass it initial values, right? And that's when you first bring up the form, those values that will be populated in the form. And we had this idea and this dialog component to unmount on hide. And really the idea there was like, okay, when I close the dialog, I want the form to be like destroy. I want it to clear back out to 0. So the next time you open it, it's like a fresh new, brand new thing. I should note that the dialog component stays in, or at least on this instance of it, stays in the DOM the whole time. And we just kind of toggle its is open or is not open prop so that we can get those animations in and out instead of unmounting it and remounting it each time. But the way this should unmount on hide was implemented originally, it's just targeting the contents of the form, which is like the actual form fields. You can see down here, this is where the contents show up. And so this thing was being toggled on or off, basically. If we are closed and we should unmount on hide, then like wipe out and unmount all these form fields. But the important thing to note here is that the form itself was still being rendered every time. And so those initial values stuck around. And so there was a little bit of, there was a bug, honestly. The region component looks to the country component. I guess we could show this visually. So here's the region component down here. Anytime this country changes, the region component will kind of clear itself out. So, okay, I have Florida in here now. I'm going to go to a different country, let's say the UK. Well, Florida is not a valid region in the UK, so it clears itself out. And anyway, long story short, those two things combined, the region component changing when the country changed and the form values, the initial values sticking around forever, caused a bug where you could kind of clear this out, and the state, we would reset the form back to like the initial values, which was an empty form, and then the state would go, the region component would go up, the country changed, and it would clear itself out. So anyway, fun little digging and code dive on that one. Long story short, the bug's fixed now. And the dialog component actually will take out and unmount the entire form now. So yeah, just a fun little rabbit hole for all you React developers. So, but that's it for the address book my account demo.
It's awesome, Eddie. That looks really sharp. Any questions from the team or the community on that one?
Yeah, hello. I got a question.
Sure.
Andy, if you have now one default, if I create a new address and you select this one as a default, what will happen with the other one?
Yeah, it will not be the default anymore. So let's see. Let's do that. Let's do Freddie Frankfurter number 3. I make that one my default. It'll uncheck number 2, which was the previous default.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, good question.
Another question. Is there a reason that the delete button is not at the same position as the edit button? Like in terms
only
of context,
because
or?
they will both be visible. It's only because we split this out.
No, I mean if you like switch to, you have the other branch still open, right?
Yeah,
like it's visually on a different spot.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Here we go. So it's only because we split the PRs, the tickets. These things, the edit and the delete, will both be visible or both not be visible. You'll never get this scenario where there's no edit button. This is actually just being hidden with visibility hidden right now. The UX feedback was the same. This should never happen. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
That's a good question, though, for sure.
Awesome, really good
All
feedback.
right.
Anything else?
Stop sharing.
All right. With that, let's hand it back over to Marcin. Marcin, are you ready to go?
Yes, let me try again.
All right.
Okay. So can you
Can you see my Chrome?
We can.
Yes. Okay. So this is the issue that I work, and here we have the design for Mega Many, and this is how it looks now. So as Eric mentioned before, this is work in progress, but a lot of things is already done. So let me show the progress. So as you can see here is desktop navigation. Menu item doesn't have children. Nothing happens here. So you can click on this link and go to this category. If category has one level of children, here you can see these categories, and also you can click on them and go to category. And here we have the case when category has two levels of nesting, and here we have the first one, the second one, and here we have the third level of categories. And yes, this is the case with many categories. And of course you can click and the page is loading. Okay, so of course this navigation disappears on mobile devices and appears here. And yeah, I think that's it. About the code and the current implementation, I faced one issue with GraphQL because I need to use this position field because the order of returned categories are different. So I need to use this field to sort categories, and I implemented this in Talon. So maybe let me share my PHP Story. Yes, I created Talon mega menu, and here we have used mega menu Talon and GraphQL query, and for Venia UI I created a few components, and as I mentioned before, this is work in progress, and I need to refactor this. And also I need to, about things to do, I need to do also breadcrumb. Let me share again my Chrome. So on design we have something like this, and I haven't done this yet, so I will work on this. And also I need to implement this active state. For example, if you go to this category, in my opinion, this should be marked as active. Yes, and yes, I need to refactor my code and write unit tests. So that's it. If you have any suggestions and questions, let me know.
Sure. So what are the props to this component? Can we just look at the component real quick and see what the
okay?
I don't know what the prop signature looks like.
and 2 functions. And the second one function is for checking that the category should be rendered. Because, for example, if you mark category in administration panel as not included in menu, the category shouldn't be rendered on storefront.
Sorry, we're having a little network trouble, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing the screen. Not seeing the screen, so it may just be me though.
Can you see my screen or not?
Not just yet.
Yeah, it's just black, so it may be app sharing versus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry, maybe my internet connection isn't very good, so this is the issue. But I can create pull request for this, and everyone can see this and
yeah, we can get
write
into
down
the details in a pull request and see how it works.
Okay.
But that looks really good.
It does, Marcin. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I know that this is very much work in progress, but I think that gives us and gives you, I think, an opportunity for some feedback so that we can get potentially that first iteration in at some point. I know with a lot of the launches we've seen to date, this is something that often is that one of those first customizations, and so I think the more we can look at this as a key piece that would reduce that, I think that helps, right? And so I think you've taken the UX here from Scott and started that process here. So do appreciate it, but also appreciate you kind of coming in kind of on the spot and showing work in progress. I know there's some things left to do, but that's okay. I think that's exactly what we're hoping for. So thank you so much. Great. So that's it for the demo section. So we've got again, we covered roundtable with some of the work in progress, some of the status of that. The demos, again, thank you again to Andy and to Marcin as well. And then we'll leave a minute or two here for Q&A. So any other questions or comments before we wrap it up for this week? All right. Well, very good. Well, that's a wrap then. Again, thank you again to everybody for presenting. Thank you again to our maintainers, as always, both Jordan and Lars, but also some of the I would say the unsung heroes like Marcin here, but also Kevin and other folks here on the call who are helping out with the community every day. So your help and your work does not go unnoticed, and so we do appreciate that. And if you need anything, you have any questions, by all means, reach out to us. You know where we are. But have a great rest of your day, your evening, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.